Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We have full test today as speaking practice. We have part one here with a couple of questions. Of course, these are sample questions, and I'm going to give you some sample answers for these questions. We have part two here, the cue card question, and we have a couple of questions for part three here. So we're going to have a chance to practice the full test a little bit longer than usual because we have extra questions. So stay put, learn how to do it, practice by yourself afterwards, and then with enough practice, you're good to go. Practice makes things better. Right. That being said, let's start with the first question, the part one, introduction and interview. Usually this part takes between 4 to 5 minutes. Our topic is work, daily routine, and technology. The first question is, do you work or are you a student? Well, I'm working as a language tutor. I'm teaching English and Spanish. I've been doing this for about 15 years now. In English, I'm focusing on academic and business English. In Spanish, I'm focusing on general Spanish, especially the speaking part. The second question is, what do you like most about your job or studies? The most important thing about my job is the fact that I get to meet a lot of people from all walks of life. Some of my students are engineers, some of them are managers, some of them are CEOs, and some of them teachers like me. Obviously, I have some English teacher taking IELTS and TOEFL examinations, so they get help from me. And another thing is ability to socialize. You know, all these people coming from different walks of life. They help you to socialize, even though sometimes it happens online. But the fact that you get in touch with these kind of people could create some sort of closeness as friendship, and you could exchange some social life ideas, and then probably get together sometimes becoming a family. So it's a job that leads to a lot of other opportunities, especially social opportunities, getting to know each other, even sometimes doing business together. So it just happens in one or another benefiting in this way. Question number 3, what is a typical day like for you? Well, I wake up at around 7 a.m. in the morning. I go to the gym, coming back, taking a shower, and starting my first session at 9 a.m. until 12. I go for lunch, and in the afternoon I have recording sessions. Then I have evening lessons, and sometimes in the evening I go to play basketball if I don't have any sessions that I have to attend that day. And almost in the middle of the night I start recording again, especially for something that needs quietness. So this kind of videos which usually require me to use my voice, and there shouldn't be any kind of noise around me, are the kind of videos that I'm making after midnight. Question number 4, do you prefer working in the morning or evening, and why? Well, I love working in the morning because in the morning you have the energy, you haven't done a lot besides sport, and I think your head is much more clearer. But sometimes I love to work after the midnight, as I said, because it's much more quiet and the world is sleeping and you're the one who is working and focusing on your thing. So it depends on the conditions and how you feel and how ready you are to do something that you're supposed to be doing at that moment. So the head being leveled and the quietness of the environment are my two major factors. So if I could have a quiet environment and my head is working well, then I don't have a problem with working at that moment. So another sample topic is technology. How often do you use technology in your daily life? Well, my life is surrounded with technology. It's everywhere. When I'm working, the internet is what helps me to access and reach my international students. I have my own PC, which I use to record my videos, I record my screen, sometimes having online meetings. I also have my smartphone, which is almost everything. I don't consider it much more useful than my computer, but that's the fastest access to my digital life, and technology. So I'd say it's much more portable. You could use it wherever you go, and easy to connect to the internet, and flexible, and it's just different from other devices. It's just at the right size. It's a little bit smaller than tablets and computers, and a little bit bigger than some other small devices. But right for typing, scrolling, texting messages, using Telegram and WhatsApp, for example, to connect with your students. And sometimes, whenever I'm not, I don't have an access to my computer, I could even have some meetings on my phone. Question number 6: what kind of technology do you use at work? Right, as I said before, the most important technology that I use at my work is my PC. I have softwares installed such as Zoom and Teams that I use for meetings. Then when I want to type, because I love writing as well, so writing is part of my work. I have published books, so most of these books were done or were prepared by using my computer, so that's the biggest technology for me. Doing research about my work, trying to get help from AI bots or chatbots, obviously, when I want to do my work much more quicker. So those are the kind of things that I can use with the technology that I can use at my work. Next question: do you think technology can make life easier? Obviously, technology makes your life easier if you use it to actually make your life easier. If you misuse technology, your life would be much more harder. For example, we have people who are spending a lot of time on social media, and this could be depressive and causing a lot of stress, and they probably have wrong ideas about the reality of life. In real life, things are different from the way people portray themselves online. So if you focus on how things look like online, then you're obviously going to be stressed and depressed, thinking maybe you're having a terrible life while everyone else is having fun. So I could say, depending on how you use it, your life would be much more easier or even harder. Is there any technology you find it difficult to use? Yes, there are technologies that are really difficult to use. For example, editing softwares. They're not easy to use, especially the complicated ones. For example, I have friends who are trying to make videos by using AI, but before that they had to use some editing tools and softwares. That was taking much more longer. And right now they have an AI, they don't get what they want to. It looks very robotic, it's not very realistic. So it's a challenging technology to use. Having a computer and trying to use the software for those kind of stuff could be very challenging. This question is clothes and appearance. In this topic, we have 4 questions. What kind of clothes do you usually wear? Well, I work from home most of the time, and I barely go out except for when I go out for sports and maybe shopping. So my favorite clothing, or the kind of clothing that I'm wearing, is usually a t-shirt. And I could have a jean from time to time, and sometimes if I feel I want to be a little bit more relaxed, so I could wear probably a much more soft, and any kind of trouser with soft fabric that is a little bit elastic, something that will make me comfortable when I'm walking, or usually it's much bigger, because I want to breathe. So those kind of clothes are my preference in general. Do you prefer comfortable or stylish clothes? For me, comfortable is stylish. So I don't care really about being stylish for the sake of being stylish. So if the clothes is comfortable, that's the clothes that I'm gonna go for. But if it's not comfortable, I don't want to have it, doesn't matter how stylish it is. So for this question, I say go for comfortable, but according to my philosophy, stylish means comfortable. Do you think clothes are important at work? Obviously, clothes and dressing code is really important, especially when you're working in an office. I don't like an office without a dressing code. It doesn't matter if it's just a t-shirt, if everyone's going to have a black t-shirt. Somehow it creates some sort of seriousness in that environment. Nowadays, people love smart casual when they go to office, but I also love when I meet an office of people, especially the ones who are in maybe trading or banking. When we are in suits, I think they look much more serious and they're in business. So all the days whereby people would actually always go to the office with the suits seems like really, really amazing. Somebody's going to work, they always have this handbag, and very smart suit. Those kind of, I think, really looks good to me. But for someone who's working from home, obviously they actually don't need that. They could even live with a pajama. Number 12, have your style changed over time? I could say it hasn't changed much. I've always been into sports, so I love the clothes that make me a little bit comfortable. From time to time, I wear jeans, and t-shirt has always been my to-go choice. So I've been wearing t-shirts my whole life, ever since I know myself. So it has always been t-shirt and t-shirt and t-shirt. Right, so now we're coming to this part here. Okay, this is my favorite part because in this part here, my friend, you're being given a cue card, and by using this cue card, you have 1 total minute to prepare, and the whole 2 minutes to talk about the topic that you have already prepared. So, easy, isn't it? Okay, let's check this question now. So, whenever you're preparing for this question, just focus on what you're being asked here. And try to think on paper, because they're also going to give you a piece of paper to write some notes. You don't have to write everything, just write the hints as if I'm thinking and I'm trying to make sure that I remember this when I'm talking. And then just make your speech naturally, answer your question naturally, as if you're telling something to your friend. Okay, let's give an example here, right? So describe a time when you had to make a good impression, you have to impress somebody. So when it happened, I think maybe when I was at the university, I'm just making up, right? And who you met, I met this beautiful girl, right, that I liked so much. What you did to make a good impression? Well, I'm a person who loves doing difficult stuff, so I went with learning Spanish because she was a Spanish girl. Again, I'm making up this stuff and explaining why the situation was important, because she was Spanish and I thought if I spoke Spanish, then she'd be impressed somehow, and it really worked. So I said, she's Spanish. All right. So I have all this conversation in my head, and I could start wherever I want. All I have to do is making sure that I'm talking about this topic, and I'm talking between 1 to 2 minutes. If I target 2 to 3 minutes, it's better, because if I talk a lot, they're just going to stop me when the time is up. So I'm going to try to give the answer to this part here and see how it goes. So I remember when I was in the university, I think it was the second year, I was in a university where I was supposed to be learning English. Like my English has to be really well. But I met this girl, well, she was in my class. She was an Erasmus student. She was coming from Spain. She was really beautiful, and I liked her, and I loved smiling at her. And I could speak English with her. Obviously, she was also good at English, and I could communicate with her in English. But it raised some kind of competition whereby a lot of guys like to talk to her and try to, get to know her. And I thought, like, I have to create an unfair advantage. Then I asked myself, what am I good at that other people cannot easily attempt? And I said, like, I'm really good with languages. Not only good, but I love languages. So what I decided is trying to learn Spanish. I started with a few phrases, and after 1 week, with the motivation of wanting to impress this girl, I had worked really hard. So one day, when I saw her, I just said, hola, ¿cómo estás? And then she smiled. That smile was just amazing, and she just replied me quickly. Estoy bien. We started talking a little bit of Spanish, and I had already prepared my sentence that I wanted to tell her that I'm still learning Spanish. Could you help me with my Spanish? And then she said, well, I'm going to help you. And then later we become friends. So this impression is really important, because she was the girl that I liked. I wanted her to be my girlfriend, or even if not my girlfriend, just my friend. I loved being around her. So that worked, and I also ended up learning Spanish. So as you have seen here, I made up a story which sounds like a real story. And what's important here in the examination is they're going to care about your English. They're not trying to see if you're telling the truth or telling a lie. Sometimes they ask you a topic about something that you cannot think of. So if you cannot think, you can make up something and then talk about it. And if you're comfortable enough with the language, you should be able to do that. Right. So that being said, I'm moving forward to seeing the questions in part 3. So this is a discussion question. In here, you're giving your opinion. Again, they don't judge your opinion. It doesn't matter if they agree or disagree with your opinion. All they're trying to do here is to see how good you are at English. So our topic here is first impressions and professional image. The first question in this part is why a first impression is important in professional life. As you have seen there earlier, we have talked in this Q-card question, we have talked about first impression. Usually this question is followed up by extra questions in part 3, like the topic in part 2 and part 3 are usually similar. They are almost going to talk about the same thing. So once you see something like this in part 2, this is also a chance for you to prepare mentally for the next topic. So this next topic you're talking about today is this one here. So why a first impression is important in professional life? Well, usually people try to create a profile when they meet you for the first time. They're trying to understand and fit you somewhere. And if they can fit you somewhere good, which is the first impression, then there are great chances that they're going to think you are that kind of a person for a very long time. And this gives you better chances of having a great relationship with these people. But if they are, for example, you enter the office for the first time and people think you're rude and you think you're better than others, you are arrogant, you don't talk to them, or maybe you're talking to them but in a very arrogant way. It doesn't matter if that day you were off, people going to think that you are arrogant. It might take a bit longer time to convince them otherwise, but that first impression, that feeling is really, really important. That's why when you're having first impression, you have to do your best. Number 2, do you think people judge others too quickly? Yes, I think people judge others too quickly, and I think this is human nature. There is nothing wrong with that, but making conclusion is worse, and acting in according to your first judgment is what's wrong. Naturally, when you see somebody for the first time, you just group them and put them somewhere, you profile them somehow. If you can stop that, it means you wouldn't know how to talk with this person. So you have to imagine they are this kind of person. You have to try a little bit. So judging people too quickly is very normal, but acting in accordance to that judgment without getting enough information is what's wrong. Question number 3, what factors influence a first impression the most? Appearance, behavior, communication. I think the first thing people look at the appearance before they talk to you, and then later they see the way you communicate with them, and then at last they're going to judge you in accordance to your behavior. So all these are really important, but before you talk to anyone, know that they cannot notice how you look like. So play with your appearance first, and then improve your communication skills, and obviously your behavior is very, very important as well. So it's a full package of having all these factors set up. Another topic, which is also part 3, and it's the second and the last topic. The last one is about technology and society. So let's discuss the topics here and practice further in part 3. As I said in the examination, you're going to have limited time. Once the time is over, they're going to move to the next part, and if it's the third part that you've been talking about, they're going to finish the examination. So don't worry about that. Is communication more important than appearance at work? I think theoretically, yes, communication is more important, but for the first time, or the way people need to see you is appearance. But if you were to improve one of them before the other, I would say work on your communication skills, because your communication skills are going to make you a better person, and once people understand you're a better person, your appearance might matter, but not as much as if you had bad communication skills. So someone who looks good, wears well, but they have bad or terrible communication skills are not usually liked in the workplace. And nobody really wants to be around them, which is going to create different circumstances which won't help you to work better with your colleagues at work. So question number 2, how can people improve their communication skills? I think the first thing that people have to learn is being polite. That's the first step before you know anything about communication. And second, they have to learn how to communicate by using strong language depending on the circumstances. But what is more important in communication skills is listening skill, your ability to listen to another person when they're talking. If your listening skills are good, your answer is going to be relevant to what you have heard from other people, and hence they're going to think you are a good communicator. So improve your listening skills, be polite, and also obviously learn some strong words that you can use during your communication. Do you think older and younger workers communicate differently? No, I think this depends on a person. In an office, you could see an older worker who has good communication with younger workers, not because they have the same communication style, but there's something that he brings or she brings in that makes younger workers want to talk to her, and there are something that younger workers might bring to the older person that might attract them to talk to. So I think these communication styles might be a little bit different because of age, but usually it depends on the person more than depending on the age. And here comes the last part, which is technology and society. As you have seen in most of our questions, we always talk about technology, society, technology and society. This shows that these are one of the most frequent asked questions. So practice well these questions, even though it doesn't mean you have to only practice these questions. You can go on and practice different topics, but pay special attention for these frequently asked questions. The first question here, which is also question number 7, part 3, how has technology changed the way people communicate? Well, I remember when I was younger, going to middle school, when I wanted to communicate with my family, I had to write a letter. Even though we had phones, but phones weren't as popular as they are right now, that if you write a letter today, people might think you are coming from a different century. You know, they'll be surprised. But in those days, once you have a cell phone, everyone is looking at you as if you are an alien, like, oh my God, this guy is, in a cool way, is an alien. Right. So yes, technology has changed the way people communicate. Do you think face-to-face communication will disappear in the future? I don't think face-to-face communication will disappear in the future, because this is what makes humans closer to each other. It's always going to be a different feeling. People have to communicate face-to-face. Without face-to-face communication, life feels empty, very robotic, not very natural. So I think the disappearance of face-to-face communication will be the disappearance of the social life itself. So I think people will still maintain face-to-face communication in the future. And the last question is, what are the advantages of online communication? Well, I love online communication because online communication saves a lot of time. When you have limited time and you want to reach somebody right away, you don't have to schedule and spend a lot of time trying to meet these people, probably preparing yourself, going outside, changing clothing and stuff. So you can communicate with them directly. I communicate with a lot of my clients and my students and my business partners this way. I love to communicate online because of the time it saves. Obviously, when I want to meet them face to face, this is a different experience. This is where you build deeper connections and deeper relationships in all walks of life. Alright, so that was the end of it. Guys, if you haven't subscribed, press the subscription button, open the notifications so you can see the new topics when they come in. Keep on practicing, listening, and do some questions for yourself. Take care of yourself, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in our next session.